Hey everyone, it's Elena from Nervosa and you're watching CMS TV.
Here on the Seth Williams Show with Chris Aiken, and we do have our guest lined up. Businessman, politician, and now podcaster.
Wow.
Mr. Jim Renacci joins us. How are you today, sir? Hang on, let me pull you up.
Click him in there.
There you go. Mr. Renacci, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
We are fantastic. Fantastic. Good to have you on. Good to see you.
Well, thank you for having me.
These are exciting times that we live in. I want to ask you about some of the stuff that's going on. But you are now a podcaster and it debuts tonight. Am I correct?
Yes, it is. We have the Buckeye War Room coming out tonight. We're going to be talking about issues related to Ohio. We're going to continue to really, look, I live and breathe Ohio. I've been an Ohioan for the last 40 plus years. I think we're still going in the wrong directions in many ways. So I just want to continue to talk to people, make sure they understand, talk about some of the issues that are affecting Ohioans and voters. Too often, as we know, people wait right until the day before election and say, now, who do I vote for and what's going on?
Right.
Well, the problem now is we don't have I think there's one obvious choice after watching that debate the other night, but I think the problem is now people have their minds made up. But I think that's what a podcast can do. I mean, you're there to help change people's minds and give people the information. And let me tell you, this podcast thing is kind of fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And look, you're right. And sometimes it's not changing the minds of those that are already dug in. I still believe when it comes to Trump and Biden, I just said this on the radio, 46% are going to be with Trump no matter what. 46% are going to be with Biden no matter what. It's 8% in the middle who are still trying to figure it out. They don't like either candidate, and some of them are saying, I'm probably not even going to vote. So, it's convincing them of some of the issues and making sure they understand that their vote is important.
Sure. Jim, how do you convince people? I want to go back to what you started with. How do you convince people to not pay so much attention to the TV politics, meaning the presidential race, and really dig into Ohio? Because we have enough problems here in Ohio. We really don't need to worry about the presidential race as much as we need to worry about guns in the streets of Cleveland, or the price of our groceries, or our roads or our construction projects. How do you convince people to take their eye off the big prize and look at home first? Because that's what we need desperately.
Well, see, and I would 100% agree with you. One of the reasons I left Washington after 8 years, I could still be there. But the problem is being there and getting nothing accomplished and seeing Ohio going in a horrible direction. I still believe that the best place to fix our entire country is at every state, and to make sure that the states are operating properly, make sure that they have the power. Remember, 200 plus years ago, the states gave the federal government limited power. The problem is the federal government has now taken aggressively more power than they really should have, and the states need to take it back. Here's the big problem, though. When you take a state like Ohio, that 30 or 40% of what it brings in is federal dollars, so it has to listen to the federal government.
Right.
The real answer is tighten your belt, which I know Ohioans don't want to hear, but you can still tighten your belt, get away from the federal requirements, and get the state back to where it should be from a spending model. I used to travel around the state. Florida, which is twice our size, spends about $10 billion more than we do. I mean, it's amazing how much money we spend in Ohio. And it's funny, people say, well, that's because we have to solve our roads. No, it's not because we have to solve our roads. It's because of a lot of other things like Medicaid expansion and a few other issues that are just, that we're spending ourselves using federal money.
And see, the problem, and I think you're absolutely right, Jim, the problem is that a lot of people don't even understand how our government was formed. They think, we're a democracy. We're not. We're a democratic republic. And the states should have the rights, and people don't seem to understand that. When Trump comes out and says abortion should be with the states, I mean, that's the way this government was formed. That's what it should be about. And the problem that we have here in Ohio is that we're a mainly Republican base, yet we have a governor who kind of leans a different way sometimes, and a state house that leans a different way sometimes. And so I think politics are just kind of getting mixed up, and I don't know how we fix it.
Well, it's even worse than that. We have 8 million registered voters. We have approximately, give or take, it changes every primary, which is another problem we have, but about 1 million Republicans, 1 million Democrats, and 6 million independents. Those are all rounded numbers, but the majority of people in Ohio are independents who actually, and then we have another problem, which is only about 20% of those that are eligible to vote. I mean, in the last primary, we only had 20% turnout. That's just amazing.
No. Well, what can we as people do, Jim? And I mean, other than voting, I mean, the obvious is, of course, you get out and vote. But what can I do today to help my community, which then helps my state? Is it going to like a town hall, or is it, helping pick up trash? I mean, what is it that people could do to make change in our state to help make that movement start?
Well, I got to tell you that the number one thing they need to do is just understand the problems. I mean, there are so many issues that just little things like I don't know how we do this, but I'm going to give you a perfect example. We used to pay our lieutenant governor $60,000 a year, and that individual used to only really be involved when the governor was sick, or the governor was ill or stepped down or wasn't available. And that's why it was really just a part-time position. Today, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, we pay our lieutenant governor $184,000. And he travels around the state and basically has a full staff of $1 million worth of more spending today to basically campaign to be the next governor. Well, that's not the way the system should have been. So I tell people that, and they'll go, well, I didn't know that. How does that happen? And then my answer is, well, you haven't been paying attention. So it's just those little things, paying attention. But I got to tell you, you could go to all of the events out there, the Republican events. Nobody will talk about those things because we do have a Republican majority. And a lot of times people say, well, I'm a Republican. I really don't want to talk about some of the issues with Republicans. Well, we have to, because our state isn't going in the right direction. And let's take it. Let's look at House Bill 6, one of the largest bribery scandals in the country. And it was under a Republican administration, under a Republican governor, under a Republican Speaker of the House. Nobody wants to talk about it. But we should, because Democrats have also had bribery issues in Ohio, because Ohio is one of the, I call it a pay-for-play state. So let's talk about it. Let's figure out how it happens, and let's fix it. And if it's the Republicans causing the problems, well, then we got to fix it, even if we are Republicans. But everybody wants to hide when it comes to Republicans, and they don't want to talk about the problems because we have had a Republican majority for, well, it's going to be on 16 years here pretty soon.
Right. Let me play devil's advocate to that just for a second, Jim. And I agree with you, but I want to offer the other side and see what you think. If Republicans admit a failing, then that becomes a talking point in every campaign ad and everything, to where actually trying to do good by admitting a mistake and fixing it becomes a negative toward keeping their position. No?
Absolutely. And that's the problem. But that means we don't fix the state. But what's the best time to do it? If the Guardians are, 50-20, and they're playing a team that's, 20-50, what's the best time to change things up in the lineup? When you're playing the weak team. Well, we're playing a weak team with the Democrats right now in Ohio. If the Democrats were strong, they would already be taking advantage of some of these issues, but they're not. So as Republicans, we know we have a strong Republican situation today. Let's fix it while we still do. That's what I believe in. There are some out there that would say, oh, no, we can't do that. Well, guess what? One of these days, the Democrats are going to become stronger because they're going to eventually figure out a way to become stronger. They did when it came to issue 1 last year. That was a Democrat issue. They figured it out, and they became pretty strong, and they won. We'll see what they do this year in the Senate race. You're going to have Sherrod Brown, who's pretty much the top of the ticket, running a Senate campaign. And if he's successful in winning, he'll show people how the Democrat can win in Ohio. I'm not sure who's going to win that race. I'm hoping that it's Bernie Moreno, but in the end, it's going to be really tough to defeat Sherrod Brown because he's going to have the money, he's going to have the infrastructure, and he's going to use the issue 1 attack or approach that the Democrats used last year.
Look, Jim, I agree with you on all of that, but we do have a governor, and we do have a speaker, and we do have many people in the Ohio House that aren't, if you want to use the term rhino, then that's what I'll use, but that's what they are. I mean, they definitely are working with the Democrats a lot more than me being a Republican would like to see. I mean, I think we need a shakeup completely on the Republican side. I don't think the Republican side is as strong as you think, in my opinion.
Well, by the way, you want to fix our state? Here's the number one issue is close the primaries. And I've been traveling the state. Look, in 2022, I never expected this. If you look at the numbers, in 2022, we were assuming there'd be about 980,000 registered voters, Republicans, vote in the Republican primary. There ended up being almost 1.2 million. Well, what happened? Well, what happened was Democrats and independents crossed over and made a decision on who the Republican governor was. What was happening is emails were going out to Democrats, text messages were going out to Democrats. I learned about it. This is 2022. And people were saying to me, you don't understand. They're telling people to stop the radical Renacci from winning the primary. Vote, take your Democrat vote, cross over, and vote for Mike DeWine. When I got that first phone call, I said, it doesn't matter. I said, I'm not worried about it. I said, it doesn't happen that often. But I learned really quickly that almost 230,000 after the election crossed over. So if you really want to fix our system, Republicans should only be able to vote for Republicans. Democrats should only be able to vote for Democrats. If you want to get the rhinos out, let's face it, what helps a rhino win is a Democrat or an independent who leans Democrat crossing over and voting for the Republican candidate they want.
What did you think about that debate the other night?
You know, it's interesting. I thought for sure this was the time for Biden to shine, for Biden to show he could stand up on stage, take the bullets for an hour in questions, and that was reason he wanted to do it. Well, clearly that didn't happen. And what's really scary is Biden should not be in that role. Now he is. He's elected. He's there until the end of this year, but he should not be in that role. And that's what people should have seen. Now, in politics, that's not what people did see. I can tell you that 46% of the people who love Biden are still going to vote for Biden. 46% of the people who love Trump and hate Biden or don't dislike Biden, I shouldn't say hate, and it's vice versa. 46% of the Democrats who like Biden and dislike Trump are going to vote for Biden. 46% who like Trump and dislike Biden are going to vote for Trump. That means the election comes down to about 8% of the people. And what makes it worse, it only comes down to 5 states in our country. Because Ohio's going to vote, you know, I don't think, and I may be wrong here, people think President Trump's going to win by 10, 12 points in Ohio. I don't think so. I think the numbers are going to be closer than normal. He's still going to win. He's still going to win. So he's not going to worry about Ohio. He's got to worry about 5 battleground states, you know, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and that's what you see. You see these guys are starting to just focus on those races. And in the end, think about this. The debate's going to be long over by the time November rolls around. There'll be 5 or 6 more things happen between now and November. And then the question is going to be, who turns out? Because if those 8% who don't like either candidate say, I'm not going, I'm not voting, then it's going to be, do the Republicans turn out more or the Democrats turn out more? And my fear is, I hate to say this, Democrats do a better job of turning out. And now that we have a ballot initiative to stop the gerrymandering, that's a Democrat issue. Democrats are going to turn out in November.
All right, so I like Trump, but I'm not an only Trumper. I wasn't a big fan of what he did to you. By the way, I thought tossing you into that race at the very end was not what should have been done. Do you think that the Republican Party would have been better off with somebody other than Trump right now running against Biden in this situation?
Well, look, I think right now the biggest problem is polls are showing that 75% of Americans dislike both candidates, and that's a real problem. It's going to come down to who they like better than the other. I always tell this story. Kellyanne Conway was at an event of mine in 2018, and she was talking about the presidential race in 2016. And she said to me, listen, because I was running against Sherrod Brown at the time. Yeah. She said, listen, she goes, I used to tell President Trump used to say, oh, people love me. And she used to say, Mr. Trump, because he wasn't president at that time, it's not that they love you. They dislike her more than you. So we have to make sure that they continue to dislike her more than you. And I think that's what we're going to have in November. Who is disliked the least?
Sure. Jim, I'm gonna go Alex Jones conspiratorial for a minute, because I'm sure you're hearing it too. There's a lot of buzz out there that Biden is not going to be the guy, that they're going to hang on till September, and then they're going to slot in Newsom or Whitmer or somebody like that, where they're not going to have enough time for the Republican Party to properly vet them, you know, going into the election. What do you say to that, and do you see that could have any credence at all?
So here's the problem with that. Let's take Ohio, for example. Ballots go out in Ohio, overseas ballots go out the second week in August. So ballots will already have Biden's name on them. That's going to be a serious problem. Okay. I think in the end, if they want to do that, they're going to have to do it actually going to have to do it this month. And look, there's only one way to remove Biden from the ballot because he now controls over $150 million. Remember, they were talking about that in 2016. Republicans were trying to remove Trump at that time. If you remember, John Kasich all the way to the convention was trying to remove Trump. And the only way to do that is to get to control the money. And everybody realized you can't control the money unless the candidate says, you know what, I'm going to turn over the money. Now, what's interesting about the Democrat Party is they have 717 special delegates that only come in when needed. They're kind of like the cavalry. And if Biden were to say, you know what, I've thought about this, I'm just not mentally up to running another 4 years, so I'm going to step away from the nomination and I'm going to hand the $150 million over to, he could decide who it's handed over to. You know what's the biggest obstacle? Jill Biden. I think Jill is so power crazy that she is going to run that train right off the cliff.
But could there not be, and I don't know politics this well to know if this could just be craziness, could there not be a case made that he just doesn't have the faculties to make that decision, and then they could replace him and then maybe get a delay on the election or special ballot provision made that if they vote for Biden, it really means for whoever the person would be, something to that effect, because of because of having a true mental deficiency or illness.
Well, look, there is the power for his cabinet to actually say to Congress that he's incapacitated, that his cabinet would have to do that to him.
Okay.
And, again, there's loyalties. It's so difficult. The best way for this to happen is for his wife. I mean, think about look, this is cruelty. This is cruelty for his wife to not say to him, look, you've had a good run. You've been in office for 50 years. You were the vice president, now the president. Do what's right for the country. We have a lot of living to do outside of Washington. Let's get it done. Let's turn it over. That's what she should do. But, I don't know if you saw that rally the other day. She's standing in front of him. It looks like he's being held up by a pole, and she's standing in front of him, we're going to keep doing this to November. She is now running the campaign. It's very sad. Very sad.
She kept telling what a great job he did on the debate and answered all the questions like he was a 2-year-old out there. And I think she actually came out with some provisions as far as leaving the White House. Like she wants something like a $1.3 million book deal or something like that. She came out with provisions that she wants. Yeah, she is running that show right now. You're absolutely right on that.
Yeah, it's sad. It's really sad to see a guy who I met actually in 2016. The Biden I met in 2016, if it was the same Biden today, which is only 8 years later, he would be it would be very difficult for Trump to defeat him. And I say that because he was a moderate, middle of the road, liked by the independents. All of those things that would be very positive in a race like this, especially when the independents and the moderates are not real happy with former President Trump.
Sure. Jim, does the lawfare thing that happened to Trump, as well as Bannon going to jail today and all that, does that stoke the Republican fires for Trump? Does all of that help Trump? Or is that something the media makes up to try and almost point the finger at Republicans and say, look at how stupid you guys are for voting for a felon, or, as they do? Yeah,
I think all that does is harden the base for Trump. It really helps. If you are that 46%, you are just getting hardened, more and hardened and hardened. This is your guy. You're voting for him. He's my guy. Look at what they've done. And then the other 46% are like, he's a criminal. This is the Democrat side. He's a criminal. He shouldn't be running. And all that did was harden their side. I'm telling you, that 8%, I mean, it's just amazing. I've had a couple people contact me and say, Congressman Renacci, I'm one of the 8%. And I just don't know what to do. And when you hear them talk, you realize they're worried about our country. They're worried about our future. They don't think Biden has the mental capabilities, but they also think they're fearful of Trump. It's like somebody told me, it's incompetence versus dangerous. Now, that's not me speaking. That's what those 8% have to think about.
So the Buckeye War Room premieres tonight at 7 o'clock. Who's going to be on tonight?
We got Bob France. We're talking about a lot of issues related to Ohio, House Bill 6. We are talking about the closed primary. Again, it's a starter. We're going to continue to talk about these kind of issues, hopefully making sure people really do start to understand that our state's not going that well. Now, I try to convince people in 2022, it's pretty simple. Look at the statistics. We're in the bottom 15 out of 50 states. We're in the top 5 states for crime and most dangerous cities. But I think you have to say it time and time again. You have to bring other people in. That's going to be the goal. We're just going to want to bring people in and try and educate individuals so they understand, look, the state's not going in the best direction. And there are ways, the things that can be done to change it.
I'm producing for Bob now, so he had a long day today of radio stuff. So I'm sure he'll be ready to go tonight, 7 o'clock, correct?
That's it.
All right.
Where can people watch it?
You can go to jimrenacci.com. You can go to Ohio for Responsible Government .org. You'll see it there, and it's being pushed all over Facebook as well. So most people are seeing it on Facebook. But we're looking forward to kicking it off and having something that continues throughout the next few years.
Yeah, my notes say YouTube also. So yeah, people can watch it all over the place. So check it out tonight, 7 o'clock.
Jim, will you have to end this podcast because you might end up running for governor?
Well, look, I never say nothing. People ask me all the time, are you running for governor? And my answer is, well, look, I'd love to see a businessman become governor. I'd love to see a strong conservative become governor. I'd love to see somebody who understands the concerns of Ohio and become governor. What's interesting, a couple of the guys that are already kind of testing the water, look at their platforms. They're all my 2022 platform. But in 2022, when I was running, they were like, oh, can't get involved. Because you know why? They were part of the establishment, as I call it. But here's the good thing. At least now they're running on my platform. They're using the same platform. And I think if we just find somebody, especially somebody who's, made payroll, had to cover mortgages, understand what it's like to live with the government overreach, I think we could make Ohio one of the top 10 states in the country instead of one of the bottom 15. So, I'm going to play this by ear. A lot of people say, oh, you got to get in if you're going to get in. Look, I think in the end, we need to make sure the right person gets in, the most competent person gets in. But at the same time, we got to get past November of this year. We got to elect a president. We got to elect a senator. We got to get our country straightened out. Only because those are the races that are on the books for this year. And then after that, we got to start worrying about 2026.
Well, I'll tell you what. I knew Kasich, fairly well, and DeWine I've had my issues and words with at times. I think we need somebody like you running this thing, and you would have my full support. That's absolute. But I think we need somebody like you in there doing that job because the past couple have not panned out the way I think Republicans wanted them to pan out. So.
Well, and again, remember, closed primaries would have changed that. If the primary was closed in 2022, I truly believe I would have been the governor nominee, but the Republican nominee. But look, I don't look back, I look forward. There's a reason why things happen. We just got to keep plugging forward and doing what we can to make a difference in the future. Here's the one thing about Jim Renacci. Yes, I've lost against 2 incumbents. I mean, people say, oh, you've lost twice. Well, you know what? I've taken on some pretty big challenges.
Yes, you have.
I had a 6-month window to beat Sherrod Brown and almost beat him. I lost, but I almost beat him with only a 6-month window. At the same time, I took on Mike DeWine, knowing that he had a lot of money, he had 99% name ID, but, here's the problem with politics. Some people get in when they think they can win. I get in to make a difference. When I ran against John Bocelli in 2010, everybody told me, you can't win. I don't care. I'm not running to be a congressman. I'm running to remove somebody. And I was successful. 2 years later, against, who was my opponent? She's now, I see her face, but I can't remember her name. They said, you're running against another incumbent. Well, I'm not running to be another congressman for another 2 years. I'm running to make sure she's removed. And I did that. And that's why I jumped into these races. Anybody can get in a race that, you get into this race, it's an open race, there's no opponent, it's easy to win. Those are for people who want to just be a politician. I want to be somebody who makes a difference and a change. So I'll take on the odds, see what I can do.
Betty Sutton, I think, was who you were running.
Betty Sutton, that was right.
Well, I thank you for coming on tonight. We got to let him go prepare for a show here.
Okay.
7 o'clock tonight, the Buckeye War Room, Facebook, YouTube, JimRenacci.com, correct?
That's it.
All right. So thank you so much for coming on today, and have a great show tonight. Tell Bob that, we said hello, and, hopefully he's good on your show tonight. So.
We'll do that. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.
All right, Jim.
Thanks a lot,
Bye
Jim.
now.
Bye-bye. The great Jim Renacci joining us, and that was fantastic. I love. He's a good man, and
he is.
I think the Buckeye War Room, 7 o'clock tonight, Facebook, YouTube. I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
not just because Bob, my boss, is going to be on there, but Bob France will be the guest tonight.
Yeah, well, you get to hear it tonight and then tomorrow, I'm sure, on Bob's show.
Yes, we'll be replaying. Because Bob's had a busy day. Bob did his show, then Bob filled in for Dennis Prager nationally today.
Okay.
And now he's doing the Buckeye War Room with Jim Renacci tonight. New podcast premieres tonight, 7 o'clock, Facebook, YouTube, JimRenacci.com. Got to make sure to check it out. Thanks to Tom for setting this up for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And good luck to him on doing a podcast.
I know.
We need more guys that are like adept at real politics to be talking about it instead of just dumbbells like me and you that are just, peripheral guys saying, Biden sucks, Trump rules, woo!
Look, I know a little bit just because I listen to Bob. When I'm not eating my granola bars, I'm listening to Bob France, and
right.
I pay attention enough to be somewhat stupid about it.
Now, dude, next time we have Jim on, and I wish we would add more time because I was going to ask him about. He was involved with the Arena Football League. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but I wanted to ask him. There's a new league that popped up, the IFL. I was watching it this weekend on YouTube. And it's just the Arena Football League with a new name. And I wanted to know if he knew anything about that.
Yeah, I know he's got a show coming up in an hour and a half.
Yeah, I don't want to, he's obviously first show too, and he doesn't need to be dicking around answering my Arena Football League question. I just know he was a part of that. And at some point, we've had him on before, so we'll have him on again. And I will ask the question at that point.
Ohio politics, I don't think people understand, are pretty screwed up right now, and I think we need to get back on track as a state as well as a country. I think he's right there, and I think one of the first steps is getting Bernie Moreno in there because Sherrod Brown has got to go.
No, he's got to go, dude. We got so many people that got to go. Mayor Bibb got to go.
That's again going back to the first hour of the show. That's he's one of the reasons why this town isn't what it should be. And, you find that in all these different liberal cities across the country. They're just running them into the ground with crime, and and I mean, businesses are just dying to get out. And
dude, I don't want to go to
good.
Cleveland. Dude, I do not want to go to Cleveland for things. I mean, the one thing I would go to Cleveland for, it would be to see my buddy Dave Landau perform, because he performs at Hilarities, about once a year. And more, I'm like, couldn't you just, and I've said this to Dave, so it's not like it's like pride. I'm like, dude, couldn't you just keep playing at the Funny Stop? Because the Funny Stop's not in downtown Cleveland.
right.
Just walking from the parking garage over to the 4th Street and back, you risk your life. It's scary down there now.
Driving into Florida, you see a sign that says Governor DeSantis. And I don't live there, and there's pride driving and seeing that sign,
Sure.
as opposed to when you come to Ohio and you see Governor Mike DeWine.
Well, DeWine's a douche. I'll say it. You
Thing.
don't have to.
Things
But
have, I'll say it. I'll say it 1,000 times. Screw that guy. But things have got to change. Things have got to change across the country. Things got to change here in the state, because it's not good. But anyways, Wednesday we will have a show.
yeah, we'll have a show. I don't know if we have any guests or not, but
I don't
whatever.
know either. But we'll have a show. So and extra content on Wednesday. Go to minds.com. Sign up for the extra content.
Yes, please do.
I quite frankly, I was busy on my vacation and didn't want to do it. So there you go. For all 2 of you who have signed up, there you go. I don't know how many have signed up, but whatever. So extra content on Wednesday and a show. So we will talk to you then. Thanks again to Mr. Jim Renacci for joining us. It was a blast, and thanks to everybody for watching and listening. God willing, we'll talk to you then.
All right.
Sound good to you?
Folks.
Thanks, Chris.
That's good to see it.
The biggest and the best heavy metal radio station is CMS Network Now. With over 5,000 heavy metal songs from all the subgenres and eras of metal, it ranges far more than almost any station broadcasting today. You can also listen to great radio shows like Charlie Kendall's Metal Shop, the shows of the CMS Network, and even the full episodes of the Classic Metal Show with the music. Visit CMS Network now at www.cmsradio.net or on the CMS Network app in both the iOS or Android stores. There's no need to listen anywhere else for the best heavy metal ever created.